What's happening, team? It's Liam from Lazarus Personal Training, and this is After Dark, where I look at AEW Dark. I take an element of wrestling and I see how we can apply it to there so we can learn from it and become better wrestlers by watching what the guys and girls are doing on AEW Dark. Once again, I'm going to apologise about my setup. I'm sat on my floor. I'm using my daughter's table as a desk. I have a donut, like a warmable microwave donut that I'm resting the camera on. I don't have my full setup yet. I was still in a transition point, so bear with me. If you get through this video with all this madness going on in the background, I appreciate it. Thank you. Today I am looking at character and how we use character within the world of professional wrestling. Now, I don't really need to explain character, but let me give you a brief overview of what I'm looking for. When it comes to wrestling, the very baseline of a wrestling story is person A versus person B, wrestling to see who is going to be the winner. But to create more nuance into a story, who is person A and who is person B, and that's where we develop further. And for a TV product, for a product that is on national TV or is on YouTube to lead you into national TV, we need more than I can wrestle. And this is where character becomes so important, and this is where people start to elevate themselves up, even though wrestling ability wise, pretty much we're all sat on the same level. So I'm going to look at some people that have good characters, I'm going to look at some people that might not have the best characters at the moment, and ask how can they develop that going forward. If you haven't realised by now, this is a Max Caster Stan account. I absolutely love him. I think he's great, and anytime that you see him appear on Dark, you can pretty much guarantee that I'm going to talk about him. For me, Max Caster is the best example of someone that has come through Dark onto AEW, into the main roster, and has just fleshed out a character. And you know exactly who Max Caster is. You know the way that he walks, you know the way that he talks, you know the way that he wrestles, you know the way that he moves around in the ring. I think he's done a fantastic job on building that presence around him. And I think that simple things like the amount of mic time that he's had has really helped to elevate him up a little bit. But then how does that link into his wrestling? And I feel like they sit very similar. The way that he's arrogant and brash on the microphone also comes into the wrestling ring. If you look at AEW Dark this week, he mentions about Alex Reynolds' hair and just picks that up, and then throughout the match he's pulling on his hair and he's using the hair to the advantage. Those links, that basis of character is fantastic, and that's why I genuinely think Max Caster is a future world champion. Simple things like he has the boombox and then he has the chain. They were both used in this match and both linked directly into the character, and that to me is a prime example of good character building. If we're looking at a match, Sonny Kiss and Angelico had a fantastic character match. Like I mentioned earlier on, you have person A and person B wrestling to see who's going to be the better wrestler and who's going to win. For Sonny Kiss and Angelico, they both have such defined, well thought out characters where that comes through the entirety of their match, and they put those two elements together and didn't just have a by the numbers wrestling match. That was a wrestling match where Angelico is the better technical wrestler, and we have Sonny Kiss who's the better gymnastic wrestler and he's quicker and can hit things like the splits, and that comes into Angelico. And how does he get around that? And yes, he could have finished him off with a submission stretch like a banana splits, but Sonny Kiss is just too flexible for it. Those elements throughout that match made that match unskippable. Like, I watched every single moment of it and went, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that again. I would highly advise, if you haven't watched it already, go and watch Sonny Kiss and Angelico, because it is a class demonstration of two characters put into a situation to then make a match that fits both of them, and actually was a credit to both of them as well. If more mid-card matches could be like that, rather than it just being like the standard structure of a match, I think wrestling would be in a far better place. And then finally, just as an example of having to fit character around a match circumstance that might overlook who you are as a wrestler, I think Adam Priest and Casey Navarro did a fantastic job of being there for Jungle Express, where you've got Marco Stunt, who's a small wrestler, and Luchasaurus, who's a big wrestler. And that story in that match was perfect. It was exactly what it needed to be, and that's the best that I've seen Luchasaurus being put over in a good while. And with that, Casey Navarro and Adam Priest both played their part excellent without particularly losing who they were. I think Casey Navarro is quite an arrogant brash. He loves himself, and you can see that with how his look is, and he played that part well against Marco Stunt. And Casey Navarro is also a smaller wrestler, so the chance for him to be like, ha, you're small to Marco Stunt, I think was a fantastic use of that. The fact that when Marco Stunt tags out and Luchasaurus tags in, and they have a bit of a debate about what, no, you go, no, I'll go, no, you go, again, perfect character for building that match that still makes both of them look good, still fulfills the purpose of that match, but doesn't lose who they are as people. As an example of a mishmash, I guess, if we look at the women's trio match, which was Red Velvet, Big Swole and Kylan King against Ashley Vox, Demi XO and Vixen. There we have some people that are characters and some people that are not characters. I know who Big Swole is, and like I wrote down some points beforehand. Big Swole has the chant, she has the muscle poses, that is her. Red Velvet, I think, wrestles in a really unique style, but then also has the whip gimmick, comes out with some form of red on her, ticked all those boxes. Ashley Vox, while I've only seen her, I think once so far, I knew exactly she does the fish hook thing, she's going to use the fish hook at some point, and her gear has some sort of relation to fishing. She ticked all those boxes. And for me, when we're looking at starting a baseline of a character, perfect. But then Kylan King, why does she not just wrestle as a big wrestler? She's bigger than the majority of the women's wrestlers on the AEW roster. So why is she not playing up to that? But instead, she's got face paint that I don't think fits what the character should be. She's doing like little bits of dancing. She's trying to fit in with the girls. One, it's mega cringy. It is the cringiest thing that I see every single time that I see it. But then also, it doesn't play up to what her size is, and why would you go against that? And I think that's something that happens a lot in wrestling, that people go, well, everybody else is doing this, so I must need to do that. Forget that. You do who you are, and she has a great opportunity to be completely different, and I just don't think she's capitalizing on that yet. And then for Vixen, I've seen her a couple of times, and it's something that I've said a couple of times as well. I need to know more about her. Who is she? She can wrestle pretty alright. She can't do a dive and shouldn't have done that dive in that match. But then in terms of being confident at talking, she can absolutely do that. So then why don't I see more of it? I still don't understand who Vixen is. I know she loves a pose on the stage, and it almost felt like they planned that to be around her doing a pose, which I was expecting Ashley Vox to come out and hit the fish hook gimmick, and it took away from her in that sense. Again, who are these people? How do we flesh them out? Some of that can come into commentary, and maybe that's them going to commentary and saying, I do this, I'm from here, I do this. Like they did that with Ashley Vox, where they were putting over that she's from Rhode Island and it's fishing, and I was like, tick, 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 she likes fish. But I need that because now I'm invested in her, because I understand who the character is. That's how we get further within this world of professional wrestling. My leg has gone completely dead. This is not good. Oh, good. To touch on someone that I don't want to say is bad, but again, we'll call a spade, or a paintbrush. Mike Magnum. I've seen him a couple of times now, and I know him as the dude that does the paintbrush thing. Which, okay, like, I know him as the dude that does the paintbrush thing. I don't understand it. I don't understand how this has any relation to wrestling. I don't think, outside of having like paint strokes on his gear, which really isn't that obvious, and then he pulled a paintbrush out and then it disappeared, and I missed it. I was like, where's that paintbrush gone? He just sort of pulled it out of his boot. That has no relation to anything else. And then like, I don't feel like he's artistic in the way that he wrestles. Like, if I was being a painter, then I'd almost want to be like artistic and posing with people and all this sort of stuff that you can really flesh out a character with, and I just don't see it. Again, to me, he's just the dude that has a paintbrush, and it completely writes him off. But I mean, in saying that, if anybody ever says to you, I'm going to finish this match by humping your face while you're upside down and then 69 in you. Just refuse. If you want a longer career within professional wrestling, just say no. But if you're happy for the payday and you're like, absolutely, 69 me up, brother, that's all good. But if you want to actually go further into it, I think there's points where you have to go, I'm not doing that. And that finish was a prime example of when to say no. I do think it would be really interesting, and this is probably something that I'm going to look at in a future episode, in terms of TV time and characters. So, for example, my main thought when I was thinking about this was Alex Reynolds. Alex Reynolds, within the Dark Order, I know who Alex Reynolds is, I've seen him wrestle, I understand what he does as a wrestler. However, if I was taking him on a one-show basis, if he had just appeared on Dark, would I know who his character is? And probably, no, I wouldn't. I'd just know that, oh, he can wrestle pretty okay. So I think TV time and the amount of TV time that people have is really important for developing this character. If Max Caster didn't have the promos, didn't have the mic time at the beginning of the match, I wouldn't see as much in him as I do. So I do think that TV time is incredibly important for building up characters. As another example of this, Baron Black winning the BTE Sammy Vlog Championship and then having a bit of time where he was speaking after it and putting over the Emperor stuff, and I was like, oh, that's who you are. Right, this makes more sense. I can see that sort of formulating. Whereas in wrestling, in his actual matches, that doesn't translate across. Now, does he need to think about how do I translate that across? Absolutely. But could he do with more mic time, more segments that allow him to develop that character so then I can understand that to take that into a wrestling match? Yes, but I think that's something that I'm going to dig into a little bit deeper in future episodes. I genuinely can't feel my leg anymore. This is not good, but I'm going to start rounding up. There's a couple of finishing points. They must have heard me last week because twice this time on AEW Dark, there was a clothesline on the outside that was completely no-sold. If you are taking a bump on the outside, please for the love of God, sell it like you've just fallen over on the outside. If you trip over outside and land on your ass, we all know how that feels, and we all know that it isn't fun, and you're not just going to get up and be like, oh, I can do everything I want. So why are we no selling these clotheslines on the outside? Please tell me that. And really, that's all I wanted to finish out with. I was just really annoyed. I'm going to round out while we start to get some banging going on behind me. That was everything for this edition of AEW Dark. What do you think about characters? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Is there anybody that you see as a character that I don't see as a character? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've liked this video, give it a like, give it a share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because it massively helps. Who knows, at some point I might have a tripod back. If not, you'll see me sat here again because my leg will still be dead. I've been Liam from Lazarus Personal Training, and I will see you next time. Can I stand up? Definitely can't. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, haha. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh wow, this is really weird. I'm gonna have to sit down. This is not good. I'm gonna break my ankle. Oh, fuck.